All right, y'all, welcome back to the show. It's Anti-War Radio. I'm Scott Horton, and our next guest on the show today is our old friend Sheldon Richman. He's the editor of the journal The Freeman, put out by the Foundation for Economic Education, and he's also a senior fellow at the Future Freedom Foundation, FFF.org. You can also find his great blog, Free Association, at sheldonfreeassociation.blogspot.com. Welcome back to the show, Sheldon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You can get to the blog, the shortcut, sheldonrichman.com.
sheldonrichman.com. I knew that, but I forgot that. There you go, the shortcut, indeed. You know, you ought to have the other one redirect to that one, if you ask me. But anyway, maybe it's too late. All right. So, you got this great article at FFF.org. Drone warfare is fraught with danger. Nuh-uh, because drones don't have pilots, and so nobody's risking anything. We're not only bombing them for miles away, we're bombing them in a way where even if they could shoot back, no American life is at risk, Sheldon.
And therein lies the danger. I didn't mean danger to pilots, because pilotless drones wouldn't have that, like you say. And I doubt if anybody in Libya could hit Nevada, where I guess they play their Atari games. The danger, of course, is a different kind of danger. Namely, that everyone is sort of celebrating, or not everybody, but you know what I mean. Most people are celebrating this Libya so-called success because it was cheap. They're saying it only cost, $1.1 billion, I think. And no American casualties and no, quote, boots on the ground, although I guess I hear that there may actually be a few boots on the ground, special op types. But the danger here is this: they're going to say, well, this is the right way to intervene, not the way George Bush did it with. So let's do a lot more of this. And then, of course, we're getting in all over the place. And the other problem is, of course, you never know how these things are going to come out. You may begin with just drones, but you don't know what events on the ground will, prompt then an administration to say, whoops, we better follow up with by putting in troops. So we're not home free. This is really bad news.
Mm-hmm. You know, it really is amazing this soon after the debacle in Iraq, and especially at the same time where it's clear that we lost. We helped our enemies win, and then now they're kicking us out, as opposed to the whole plan to stay forever and all of that. And yet people are still acting like, hey, well, Gaddafi's dead, so mission accomplished in Libya. Everything's going to be fine there now.
Well, that's right. We don't know. I mean, again, that show is not over, and maybe things will work out fine. But and I have no. I'm not missing Gaddafi. Let's put it that way. I don't like when rebels or states kill. I'd rather he had been brought before some judicial proceeding. I don't think the U.S. should have been involved, but that should have been done there. What happened is all little. We don't know what happened. Now he's buried in some secret grave. And I read in the New York Times that the rebels are not exactly open to investigation when charges of massacres have been leveled. So I don't know what's going to happen there. It may not be very pretty at all. The U.S. shouldn't have been involved at all. But once you start one of these things, you don't know where it's going to go. I mean, the op-ed you mentioned has a quote from Randolph Bourne, the great Randolph Bourne, who not only said that war is the health of the state, but he said getting into war is like trying to ride and control a wild elephant. You don't know where it's going to go.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's all these old adages about the battle plan never survives the first engagement, and never mind the first casualty is the truth. I mean, here's a war that was started on the premise that, there was gonna be a massacre. Right. There already had been a bunch, and we had to stop it from continuing. But there would have been if we didn't start. They didn't go to Congress. They go get a UN resolution for the thing that authorized a no-fly zone to protect Benghazi, which then the president writes a joint op-ed with the leaders of Britain and France in the Daily Telegraph, where he announces that the new policy is regime change, as though we didn't see that coming all along. I mean, That to me is the most, I don't know, well, other than all the dead people and all the horrible consequences still to come on this, but that just seems like one of the most outrageous parts of this. I mean, even the Bushes had the respect to pretend to go to the Congress like it mattered,
Well, right, and this conclusion the other day, if it is a conclusion with the end of Gaddafi, has enable everybody to just forget all that's going along, all the constitutional issues, all the legal issues. I mean, it seems to me there are still grounds for impeachment of Obama in violation of the War Powers Resolution, not to mention the Constitution. He was the one who came up with or somebody in his Justice Department that, hey, this is not hostilities. These were not hostilities we were involved in. I mean, we were dropping bombs and firing missiles in a non-hostile environment, apparently, according to him, which seems a little odd. I think if you're firing missiles, that's hostilities, but not enough to qualify for him his compliance with the War Powers Resolution. Well,
it was a limited kinetic action.
Yes, well, that's true, and nowhere in the Constitution can you find the words limited kinetic action. That is absolutely right. But the problem is everyone can now forget about that because mission accomplished, right? Gaddafi's gone. But you're right. That was not supposed to be the intention. Originally, it was supposed to be a no-fly zone so that Gaddafi couldn't fly planes and bomb his own people. But that got forgotten after about one day, and they were bombing his compound and doing other things that had nothing to do with the no-fly zone. So we were lied to from the very beginning, and I think the constitutional issues are very serious. But no one's going to talk about it now because it seems like a success.
Yeah, well, for now, and maybe I'm the worst like this. It would be amazing if I was wrong, because I never am. I've been right about everything for the whole time I've been on the radio.
I know, that's why I listen to the show.
But I think that I think we're going to be there for 20 years. I think, probably after the election next year, there will be, full-scale troops on the ground. Already we got JSOC and CIA guys running around all over the place and whatever, but it's sure to be chaos. They've already announced an Islamic government over there and whatever. And the off chance that Obama loses to a worse warmonger from the right, which I think will be reelected, depending on, I guess, on who they nominate. But
I agree with you.
But we could see full scale. They say they learned the lessons of Iraq in Libya, but I don't think so. I mean, they're gonna cut and run and leave the country in the hands of a bunch of veterans of the Iraq and Afghan wars where they fought against the United States? No, I don't think so.
Well, all good questions, and I want to know who has the purple ink concession. Is that Halliburton? Do they own purple ink?
Yeah,
because they must be selling barrels of that stuff to the Pentagon. It's part of the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
So the question is, what's next? There's, Syria. Things are heating up with Syria. The ambassador is out of there, and they took their ambassador out of Washington, I guess. So. Is that next? But I'm wondering about whether they really want to make a change in Syria because they don't know what will follow Assad, and Israel, I'm sure, is concerned about what would follow Assad. I doubt if it would be a secular government.
Yeah, I wonder why it's taken so long. It seems like they would have gone ahead and started bombing Damascus by now,
Well, I'm just wondering if they're
I'm not trying to encourage them. I'm
sure they won't think that, but I'm just wondering whether they're a little bit concerned about who would follow and whether that might end up being worse for our client.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on what Netanyahu's whim is today, because, on one hand, dealing with the Ba'athis is not that hard, from his point of view. On the other hand, destroying Syria and turning it into a giant civil war and destroying the Ba'ath army and all of that stuff, that could be seen as a tactical victory, if not a strategic one for the long term.
Yeah, and talk about riding a wild elephant. That would be a perfect case of it, because you don't know where that's going to go.
Yep. Well, and Obama seems intent on expanding the war in Somalia. It was funny to see them deny that they knew Kenya was going to invade last week. But they're announcing and congratulating themselves for expanding the drone war in Somalia now as well. And we know from Scahill that they got JSOC and CIA guys torturing people in a dungeon beneath Mogadishu and running around financing the so-called Somali government. So there's another one that is probably just going to continue to expand from here.
Well, I wonder, I'm still waiting to hear how things are going in Central Africa, after chasing that guy, whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll get right back to that after this with Sheldon Richman, FFF.org. All right, Shel, welcome back to the show. It's anti-war radio.
The wars of the future will not be fought on a battlefield or at sea. They will be fought in space, or possibly on top of a very tall mountain. In either case, most of the actual fighting will be done by small robots. And as you go forth today, remember always, your duty is clear: to build and maintain those robots.
All right, that's The Simpsons, 15 years ago or something, on the current state of American foreign policy. It's Sheldon Richman from the Future Freedom Foundation, and SheldonRichman.com, you said, right?
Yes.
Man, I should have wrote that down. SheldonRichman.com, and we're talking about his piece in the Future Foundation, on the Future Freedom Foundation's website. Drone warfare is fraught with danger. And back to the main point here, like you were saying, it's really easy, I guess, to hire some nearsighted goofball to sit in a lazy boy chair and play video games all day in Nevada and kill people on the other side of the world, which just means that from the point of view of the people running the empire, it's all the more incentive for them to just continue to spread this drone war to all corners of the world, thinking that they can just get away with it completely.
Well, I can't think of anything worse than to give the state this sort of cheap and easy way to kill people at great distance. I mean, this is terrible. I had this crazy idea that maybe we should launch a movement to demand that Obama sit behind one of the consoles and launch the drones and the missiles. Make him do that, or at least maybe he would say, well, maybe let's not do this anymore if he had to be the one to do it. So
yeah, like that old onion piece Bush bravely leads 3rd Infantry Division into Iraq.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. What would the reaction be? I mean, let him get a little hands-on experience. It's a killing. Come on. Don't just do it by order. It's too easy that way. If you're going to be a man about it, that's what Republicans candidates ought to demand this of him. Show yourself that you're really a man. Go in there and fly those drones yourself.
Yeah, because that is the test of manhood in 2011 America.
Well, and the Republicans, of course, have to one-up him because he's doing all the things they'd be doing, so they really can't hit him on the wimp factor, because of bin Laden and Gaddafi now.
Oh, they're trying over Iraq now.
So now, you're right, if they want to one-up him, they can each of the candidates can promise, of course, Ron Paul would have the right position on this, that if I am elected, I promise that I will launch the drones myself. I will pilot the drones from Nevada myself. Let Obama match me on that promise.
There you go. That sounds like fun. I like Saddam Hussein's proposals. Just let him and George W. Bush duke it out.
There was a commercial years ago. It was actually like a public service announcement for the UN where they showed, two fat, diplomatic-looking guys. I guess they were supposed to be heads of state in a big field, just wrestling and fighting it out while people stood around and watched them. That would be a big improvement, because that won't happen.
Yeah, Obama versus Gaddafi. That would have been a good one. Or Sarkozy versus Gaddafi, I'd have done the pay-per-view for that.
We would have need Howard Cosell back for this. We'd have to bring him back from the dead just to do it.
And it really should be, 2 men enter, only 1 man leaves. That should be the only rule. Right,
so I don't know what we're going to do about this, because the American people didn't really seem to care much when there were actually, people, Americans, they don't care about non-Americans, but Americans, on the scene being shot at and being blown up. They didn't care that much about that, but how much less are they going to care if it's just pieces of machinery flying around, which don't even get shot down?
Not at all. And the more wars, the less each one matters. I saw Ron Paul gave a great speech at the University of Ohio or Iowa or something. Anyway, and he was saying, now we've, Obama's gone ahead and expanded into Uganda and this and that. And I thought, no way, Ron Paul. The line should have been, who here even knows? Who here even got the press release that last week America invaded Congo and Central African Republic? Who can find Central African Republic on a map? And don't just guess. I mean, come on.
Well, it kind of gives it away because it says Central African in the name.
It is a tiny little round little thing there. But anyway, come on. We're putting troops in Uganda. Don't you think, never mind congressional approval, don't you think that Americans should have to be informed when they get 4 new wars in one day? I left out South Sudan there.
Well, should they have to be informed? Well, we don't want to be informed. We made our choice. Don't tell us about it. Do we ever have to, whatever you think you have to do, but please don't let us know about it, and we'll feel better. That's the way American people seem to want it.
Well, I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, Richard Mayberry,
Yes, I've heard of him. I've never met him, but I have heard of him.
Forecaster and economist guy. He says that there's a 90% chance or something that at some point someone's going to nuke Washington, D.C. I think he probably imagines that, suitcase nukes are, exist or are really possible, that kind of thing. So maybe he was off by the ease of which someone could actually get a nuke here and do it, or how many of them there are on the open market out there or whatever. But still, he was saying you can only kill so many people. You can only make so many millions and millions and millions of blood enemies in the world before something really bad is going to happen to you at some point.
Well, it's a scary thought.
I mean, he wasn't referring to any particular group. He was just saying, come on, man, these are the laws of physics here. Right.
Well, it's a scary thought. I mean, the idea of just, bystanders getting hurt by that would be, who wants to think about that?
Or hell, I mean, even the Democrats, the Republicans responsible. Nobody wants to see anybody turn to nuclear ashes. I mean, come on.
Well,
Hillary Clinton ought to die of old age in prison like the rest of her peers.
Maybe when the protesters get tired of being at Wall Street, which and it's fine to be protesting Wall Street for all kinds of reasons, but maybe they ought to figure out where the drone factories are and have some protests outside of those.
Yeah, well, of course, there was something like that. They had a drone exhibit at the Air and Space Museum, and it was funny. Jeremy Sapienza wrote up a great little blog entry about this, how everybody made such a big deal that it was a right-wing, Breitbart, provocateur type who caused the ruckus. But Sapienza's point was, well, what a bunch of cowards. It was only the right-wing provocateur that caused the ruckus. Weren't y'all there to cause a ruckus? What happened? Only the right-winger dared go through the door and cause a problem for anyone. And all the left-wingers, I guess, just sat outside singing, all we were saying is give peace a chance or something, and nobody actually protested the damn drone exhibit at all.
Yeah.
It's just another, it's a great exhibit, man. Just think of how much ingenuity went into creating these Reaper drones. A lot.
Well, I would say that was wasted ingenuity. I mean, at least from our point of view, it was wasted. It's obviously carrying out other people's objectives, but.
Yep. Well, I don't know. I saw Jon Stewart. I forgot which numbers he used. I think he said, Barack Obama took us from 2 wars to 1. And I was thinking, wow, how exactly do you count wars at the Daily Show? Because I was thinking that Afghanistan and Pakistan right there is 2, not 1, even if you're just talking about the same war. And then, of course, there's Yemen and Somalia. And the Libya thing, as I was saying, I think is going to continue to escalate. And then expanding into Central African Republic and all this. Like, Jon Stewart doesn't know about all that? Obama took us from 2 wars to 1, he claimed on TV last night? That bothers me.
Well, and look, let's talk about Iraq. Is that really over? So we're okay, they're taking some people out, and they've renamed some troops trainers rather than combat troops. Plus,
the trainers are getting kicked out too. The question is about the question now is about the mercenaries, and Muqtada al-Sadr is saying they count as combat troops to me. I don't care what you call them. And so, as Gareth Porter was just saying on the show, actually, it remains a question as to whether Hillary's going to be able to have her private army of mercs there at all.
Wow, maybe she'll resign. I mean, without that, what's the point of even being Secretary of State?
What's the point of even being alive to her? I mean, that was her whole thing in life, was to command an army like Napoleon.
And she was willing to settle for a private army.
Yeah, that Muqtada al-Sadr is just a party pooper, man. You can ask a lot of people. They'll tell you. He'll ruin your whole day.
And so what's the theory for his change? Because I thought, Patrick Coburn was saying that he was making this public noises about how it's okay for the Americans to stay. Or publicly he was saying it wasn't okay, but privately he was saying, yeah, it's probably okay, but now it's not okay at all, I guess, at any level.
I don't know. I guess he found his advantage. I mean, early last week, I think it was Tuesday, Aswat al-Iraq says, by the way, Muqtada al-Sadr just got back from Iran again. And it seemed to me, I don't know exactly what happened there, but that must have been the final straw in the thing. Or he just came to make sure that when it came down to it, it wasn't going to happen. So,
well, I'm glad someone was pressuring to get them all out of there.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm sure there are guys at the Pentagon who still don't want to give in. And there's always Kurdistan, Sheldon. Don't count out Kurdistan.
You're right.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Anytime.
And Sheldon, and everybody for listening to Sheldon.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, man. FFF.org, SheldonRichman.com, and FEE.com or org or one of those two.